There's only 4 words. This one's for John. This one's for Pat.
Ladies and gentlemen, happy Tuesday evening. Tough news today. Minnesota Vikings rookie quarterback J.J. McCarthy is going to be out indefinitely. And it seems like a lot of times there's an injury and then we find out how long they're going to be out and then we just kind of move on. But this one, there's actually a lot to break down. And as I was sitting here preparing and getting ready, there was just so many different points that kind of stood out that I want to bring up about this injury because I do think there's more going on here. So, of course, J.J. McCarthy goes out there and he plays really good. I'm not going to say lights out, but he played pretty damn good. Good enough for Minnesota Viking fans all around the world to say, hey, this is the guy that we want to start week 1. This is the guy that's exciting. This is our upside. J.J. McCarthy to the moon. People probably ordering jerseys online. I'm not kidding. Like, it's the same way Bronco fans felt about Bo Nix. So I can actually really sympathize with the Vikings, their fan base right now, because I mean, one moment you're like, we got a guy, he's going to work out, we're going to be relevant. And then Monday he says that his knee's sore and he sits out of practice. And what seemed like a formality, the imaging that they did comes back as a meniscus tear in his right knee. Now, the way that this was talked about on Monday, I would have never guessed that J.J. McCarthy was going to have a tear. I mean, you hear this language all the time. Yeah, we're going to do some imaging just to, be sure. But yeah, we expect that, he'll be back soon. And that is not what happened today. We were all shocked, I think, to hear that J.J. McCarthy is going to need surgery to repair his meniscus. So immediately, excuse me, I just slammed a bunch of food before jumping on. Immediately, when I got this news, I opened another tab and I was like, how long for a meniscus surgery? And I saw 3 options. One of them I couldn't pronounce. It was like meniscus tops, and like almost like biopsy, the second half of that, with meniscus as the front part of the word. It's like a vasectomy, but a meniscectomy. I don't know, something like that. That is when you have a partial tear, and basically what they do is they go in there and they don't permanently fix it, if that makes sense. They just, I guess, get it to where it needs to be for you to be able to plant on that foot again. So that is only 3 to 6 weeks of a timeline, whereas a tear would require a meniscus repair surgery, which would be 3 to 6 months. So we have 2 entirely different timelines going on here. So I'm sitting here wondering, well, which one do I think it is? Well, right off the bat, I thought it was the second one. Why? Because he was ruled out indefinitely. Now, the more I'm just giving you my instant reaction, because as I sat here getting my notes ready, the more I realized indefinitely might just be another way of the Vikings saying, we don't know, but it's going to be a couple months minimum, no matter what it is. So I don't know if that, but I guess when I heard the news, the way I took it was out indefinitely. He's going to have the repair. Now, I don't know if that's what it's going to be to this point. But what I do want to point out is that when the Vikings drafted J.J. McCarthy, Sam Darnold was among a lot of people expected to be the starter. Now that J.J. McCarthy went out there and played really good, everyone's bummed out. But I don't think this is the worst thing in the world, because what the doctors do tell you is that if you do the meniscus repair, it is a longer path to recovery. But if you go down that road, you're less likely to get re-injured, and overall it's better for your entire body. Now, you think of JJ McCarthy as a house, right? The first thing you buy when you buy a house is the insurance. It is in the best interest of the Vikings that JJ McCarthy doesn't put a Band-Aid on something that could come up down the road. If it even is 50-50, I expect the Vikings to go do the repair surgery, because they want McCarthy to be their long-term quarterback, and they're going to protect their investment. Something very similar to this happened last year with Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson sprained his AC joint in his shoulder. So I believe it was a meniscus tear as well. I was trying to pull it up because I remember this being very, very similar. And in a lot of ways, they both have this timeline in common, because think, Anthony Richardson was another, he's a project, but he was so talented that he got drafted really high. A lot of people thought J.J. McCarthy was not the most pro-ready, playing at Michigan, not asked to do that much. How is he going to adapt to the NFL? The whole plan was always that J.J. McCarthy, the talent is there, but he's going to take a little while. Anthony Richardson had the same views on him when he was going through the combine. It was like, this guy's an alien, but he has a lot of work to do. Well, Anthony Richardson looked really good in the preseason, and he looked so good in the preseason that the Colts named him the starter, something I think would have happened to J.J. McCarthy had he not gotten injured. Now, he ends up getting injured, and the Colts have a similar thing, because it kind of felt weird, right? I remember it this way. I remember Anthony Richardson dealing with an injury, but then I remember the wording from the Colts front office was almost like the Colts have decided to shelf Anthony Richardson for the year. Right. It didn't feel like this is something that we have no choice. It felt like the Colts were like, yeah, we're going to do the right thing here. We're not going to play him through, an injury, the season-ending shoulder injury during his 2023 season, which I believe was an AC joint. Is there an AC joint in the shoulder? I'm trying to see if there's like an actual word for it. What was if you guys can help me out in the chat, what was Anthony Richardson's exact shoulder injury? What was it? You know why it's not coming up? Because I'm not on Google. I swear, Yahoo is the worst search engine in the world. I mean, how can you screw this up? What do you think I'm talking about? Anthony Richardson's injury. Okay, so I Google it, and it comes up right away. Anthony Richardson's injury history and updates. So we are looking at number one. What would that be? October 8th, 2023. Yes, AC joint sprain in his shoulder. So that is what I thought it was. So when I looked up, though, can a quarterback play through an AC joint sprain on the shoulder? What it said was whether a quarterback can play through an AC joint or not depends on how much pain they can tolerate, their mobility for one thing, and if they're able to perform their duties. So what does that say to you? That tells me that the Colts could have played Anthony Richardson. And that's why it sounded like that when the Colts came out and decided to shelf him. It sounded like the Colts made a decision. It didn't sound like they didn't have a choice. So I think the same thing's going on with J.J. McCarthy a little bit. Like, yes, he was going to need surgery one way or another, whether it was to do a full repair or just put a Band-Aid on it for 3 to 6 weeks. But I think the Vikings are going to take the path of the Colts, where it's like, hey, he looked really good in the preseason. He's going to have an entire season to learn behind Sam Darnold. There's going to be no pressure on him. By this time next year, the same thing that we're hearing from Anthony Richardson, we're going to be hearing from J.J. McCarthy. I feel much more confident in the offense, light years ahead of where I was last year, because he will be. It's the truth. So I think the Vikings think overall that this is the right decision to make. And it tells me that they believe in J.J. McCarthy. Because if they didn't, I do think they'd be like, oh, hurry it up, throw him back out on the field. We need to see if we want him or not. The way they're protecting him, and I expect it to be 6-month recovery. He's out for the season, and if he does come back early, I would be shocked. And so would the people on DraftKings and what's the other one, FanDuel, because from what I saw, the odds for comeback player of the year for Sam Darnold was plus 5,000, and as of a couple hours ago, it's dropped to plus 2,000. So I think it's going to be Sam Darnold this year. And it's kind of a bummer because, like I said, he looked really good in the preseason. And Bill saying here, too, I was bummed to see the news. We had a scare of our own with Tracy Jr. today getting carted off. Ooh, was anything confirmed? Hopefully not. And Bill said, it's the right call. Let JJ heal up and play Sam Darnold. And O'Connell was talking about him earlier. And he goes, by the way, JJ, who was always Justin Jefferson, now O'Connell is saying JJ, and he's talking about JJ McCarthy. So this is going to get confusing very quick for casuals. I don't know if there's been officially a new nickname for Justin Jefferson, but this is getting weird. Anyway, this is what he said. I credit JJ for obviously being able to continue to play. He didn't come out of the game from the injury, and he finished the night. This is another thing that makes me think that it wasn't a full-on tear, but they're still going to do the repair. I feel like Dr. Seuss over here. At that point, he kind of reached the snap count. I was hoping to get him through the game, and at that point, he was taken out. But at no time did he think it was something that would be something that would take him out of the football game and not allow him to play. And I believe that 100% just by the way they talked about this injury on Monday. We're going to do the imaging. It just sounded like the cliche coach thing. We're just going to make sure. And I think they were all shocked. I had a very clear-cut plan and was going to continue through that with just JJ on the field, getting more and more reps, and obviously coming off a performance like he had where we felt strongly about where he was at in his development process. You hurt for him in the short term because he had such a daily process focus, all those things that I was really looking for in a young player at the position. But first and foremost, we will get this procedure done. Make sure that we're doing the right things for him to have the best possible recovery when that takes place. That is the key word out of this whole thing. Best possible recovery. The best possible recovery is going to be a repair. Now, the Vikings traded up one spot to select McCarthy with the 10th overall pick, and now he will be on the bench for the entire year, it seems. But I think this is going to be really good for JJ. First off, I mean, thank God that he didn't play like crap in that one game he played. I mean, then you got to have that taste in your mouth for the entire year. JJ at least got to go out there, feel the speed of the game, make a couple touchdown throws, and now he can think about that for the next year, and I think that'll motivate him, especially this rookie class is going to be really good. So he's going to be watching all the other quarterbacks ball out, I think. So JJ McCarthy will be back next year, and I think it's not official that he'll be out for the year, but my prediction is that he's out for the year. All signs are pointing to that direction. So Bill said, it luckily turned out to be a low ankle sprain. I'll take that over what we were all fearing. Yeah, that happened to Jerry Jeudy last year. I still can't believe that he didn't break his leg. Or no, what it looked like it was, I think a hamstring, something weird where he had to get carted off, and we watched it in slow motion, and the leg just bent, and then they called it a sprain, and I was like, really? Damn. So I know exactly the feeling, but hopefully it doesn't linger throughout the year. Um, but yeah, that is J.J. McCarthy. Hopefully he'll be back soon, and maybe this will even help him in the long run. Sit back for a little bit, like some of these other quarterbacks are doing, like Jordan Love. It's just 1 year, but he's gonna be miles ahead of where he was right now. So if you're a Viking fan, I mean, you can still be optimistic because Sam Darnold is probably the best backup in the NFL. I mean, you don't have Nathan Peterman coming into the game here. You got somebody that is 1 year removed from Kyle Shanahan, who is probably going to have a career reboot. He's going to have his Ryan Tannehill season, I think. And that's why the odds for comeback player of the year have kind of plummeted because uh, it's very likely. I mean, the Vikings have a really good team. They have weapons. They have tight ends. They got a good line. They got a great play caller. You saw what Kevin O'Connell was able to do with all the quarterbacks that came through last year. Sam Darnold's better than the Pasternak. He's better than some of these other guys, not named Kirk Cousins. So I mean, if you're Sam Darnold, you're sad for your buddy, but he's going to make the most of this, and it'll be interesting if he does win comeback player of the year and the Vikings win 10 games. What do you do then with J.J. McCarthy? Do you just sit him for a couple more years, or I don't know? So things will get a little interesting. Now, the new kickoff rule was something I talked about on Monday. And I said, I didn't realize how much scoring is going to be happening this year. Well, I am here to tell you there was another outcome with this new kickoff rule that I was talking to my mom, and she was asking what about the new kickoff rule, and I told her that basically no one can move until the ball is touched, but if it's a touchback, the ball now goes to the 30-yard line. So it incentivizes kickers to not just kick it into the back of the end zone, and it all made sense. Well, I watched the Broncos Colts game, and it's like the starting field position at many times was the 49-yard line, the 40. Like, I didn't realize how much this is really going to affect the game. So, I mean, I really think that this is going to be the highest scoring NFL season ever. And it's going to be because of the starting field position. Field goals, you're going to get field goals where you used to get punts. Okay. You used to start on the 25, get 2 first downs, stall out on third, punt the football. Now you're going to start on the 40 and stall out on third down and kick a 55-yard field goal. So it's just really, or flip the field with your punter. I mean, there's a big change coming, and I could kind of see it watching a full game because I was like, well, they're scoring on almost every drive. That's why it was a pretty high scoring game. But then what I realized was I bet I'm going to say a quarter of the way through the season, a quarter of the teams are just going to kick it out of the back of the end zone. They're going to say, you know what? 30-yard line's not so bad compared to, the risk of giving up a 50-yard line starting position or a touchdown. I mean, it's 5 more yards. So if the season is going on in the starting field position for teams returning the football are at the 30-yard line about average, then you're like, yeah, well, let's just get rid of the risk of, a return or a good run back and just accept the league average, accept the 30-yarder. And that's what made the most sense to me. Colin Cowherd said the same thing on the Herd months ago. He was like, I think he said the 3-quarter mark of the season, teams will just be kicking it out of the back of the end zone. I think they'll have no problem giving up the 30-yard line. And today was the first time we actually heard somebody come out and talk about it. Okay. So this is Steelers have there's something that just came up. Steelers have a deal in place to acquire Brandon Ayuk. The 49ers are awaiting an answer from Brandon Ayuk on a long-term contract. So Brandon Ayuk appears to have two paths to choose from here. He's either going to be a Steeler or he's going to be accepting the Niners' latest offer. This is crazy. Okay. I was hoping it wouldn't be the Steelers, but all right, let's stay on subject. But we are going to talk about Kyle Shanahan here because Kyle Shanahan said, I think he's the first one, don't quote me on this, but I believe he's the first one to come out and say, we're not going to be kicking returnable kicks with the new kickoff rule. And I'm trying to find it. Where did it go? Let me see. Google. I can't even remember where I saw it. Kyle Shanahan, new kickoff. Let's see. 21 hours ago. Okay, here it is. It was NBC Sports. And Matt, 49ers media team, wrote this. So when 49ers CEO Jed York submitted one of just 3 no votes on the league's new kickoff rule, he said he anticipated the possibility of unforeseen consequences. Now, it looks so there was only 3 no votes on the new kickoff rule, and the 49ers CEO was one of them. Now, it looks like a possibility that the more things change on kickoffs, the more they could remain the same. And this is what we were talking about. The kickoff essentially was eliminated from the NFL game over time. So the league voted a dramatic change this season. But perhaps the touchback will be more prevalent than ever unless the league steps in and makes another change. Because in the past, the touchback would take the ball to the 25. Now it's going to be the 30-yard line. And that's not going to serve much of a deterrent against kicking the ball out of the end zone. The whole point here is if the touchback put the ball on the 40-yard line, then you would make damn sure that you don't have a touchback, right? That would be equal to kicking the ball out of bounds. The 40-yard line is a serious punishment. The 30 is like, I think the NFL was like, we want to do this in baby steps, but I don't know if teams are actually going to be letting anyone return. I think they'll accept the 5 more yards. It's 5 more yards. It's a false start or an offsides penalty. It's not a big deal. So on Saturday, the 49ers coverage unit surrendered a 63-yard return against the Titans here in Nashville. Now, today, 2 days later, Shanahan was asked about yesterday, because they played on Saturday. Shanahan was asked about the possibility of kicking the ball as deep as possible and just giving up the 5 yards and taking no chances on a long return. And this is what Shanahan said, and you can feel the sarcasm here. It's a hell of an idea. I haven't thought of that. Shanahan said on Monday, and like I said, the answer dripping in sarcasm. Of course, the 49ers have thought about it, and of course, that appears to be the way the 49ers and most teams will choose to handle their kickoffs. So far in the preseason, 104 of the 127 kickoffs were returned. The average starting point was the 29-yard line. So, I mean, the average starting is 29. So, yes, if you make them return it, you could have a 1-yard difference. At what cost, though? So, yeah, nobody's going to go for this. These balls are going to be kicked into the back of the end zone. When you can start at the 30 and the average starting line is the 29, it doesn't seem like there's any reason to go for that risk. And that's exactly what Shanahan said. So I like the rule. I mean, at first I was a little scared, but after watching football this weekend, I actually kind of like it. I think it made the game really exciting again, that aspect where kickoffs were just almost like, why are we even doing it? Just spot the ball in the 25. You never see people returning kickoffs anymore. So I do like it. It almost feels kind of like a punt return. But without the touchback going a little bit further, I think you're just going to have people kicking it out of the end zone. And Bill said the 49ers want him back, but I think he really wants out after all of this, talking about Brandon Ayuk. And Crafty said, too late, I'm quoting you. Baby steps. Nice. What about Bob? I haven't seen that one. Average starting line. Interesting, Kyle. I never thought of that angle. Yeah. So, I mean, if you guys were, running a sports team, I have a hard time believing that you guys wouldn't just kick it out of the end zone. I think teams are not doing that right now because amongst coaches, they do team practices and they purposely will be like, hey, can we do red zone today? Can we do this? I'm sure the teams have gotten together like, hey, we want to test out some of our return people and figure out, because this is a different type of return. So every team in every preseason game has put different people back there, just seeing like who's got a knack for this. If you kick it out of the back of the end zone, the teams don't get to practice their returns. So I think this is just coaches being good sports with each other by making 104 of the, what was it, 104 of the 127 kickoffs were returned. So I think this is just good sportsmanship. But when the real season starts and it's week 1 and the games matter and the 49ers and the Jets are playing, I think things are going to be the exact opposite. 104 of 127 are going to be touchbacks. So just be prepared for a major shift when the regular season starts, because I think that's what we're going to see. And I loved this from Gerard Mayo. So Patriots head coach Gerard Mayo delivers an emphatic no fighting message to his team. And I was watching the McAfee show the other day, and they were like, how are they going to get rid of off-season fights? And the point that McAfee was making, he was like, you can't. It's impossible. There's people, the stakes, the heat, the physical aspect of this game. You're going to have a fight all the time. And you saw Hard Knocks last year when Saleh was like, clear the coach came over and he's like, every time they get in a fight, they don't have to clear the bench. And he's like, yeah, they do. So you even have head coaches kind of, I don't want to say encouraging it, but if there is a teammate that is, getting pushed or, stood over or taunting, or they hit your quarterback, you want your team to respond that way. So you're riding this, very tricky balance between, not getting into these type of fights where practices have to be canceled, and also proving to your teammates that you're there for them. And it's just such a physical sport. Like I said, there's going to be fights. I mean, it would be weird if there wasn't, right? So Gerard Mayo, he's taking a hardline approach on fights during joint practices. And this is what he said, which I actually like it a lot, but it does seem kind of like an old school mentality where you just don't see coaches treat NFL players like this. And I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just different. So on Tuesday, they asked Mayo if he had a plan in place for fights. And Mayo outlined his very direct approach. This is what he said. Absolutely. I mean, look, you don't fight in a real game, Mayo said. If you fight in a real game, you get fined, you get kicked out. It's the same thing here. Look, my message to the players is, if you get in a fight out there, if you're a starter, you're going to play the whole preseason. If you're not a starter, you won't play at all. That's my mindset with that. So I guess a lot of the number one, they don't want to be out there. Wide receiver 1, QB 1, whoever's first string on the depth chart. Those guys are just trying to get, just kind of go out there, throw some balls, get loose, and then get out of the game. And he's like, look, whatever it is that you don't want to do, I'll make you do it. So, I mean, you look at the people that aren't starters, they want to go out there and show that they could be. And he's like, you won't even touch the field if you get in a fight. So it's a great kind of plan in place. They asked him if he had one, and that's his plan. I'm going to do the exact opposite of what you want if you guys get in a fight. And you got to believe that Gerard Mayo in the Patriot way is still inside of him, that he's still, you're going to see things that remind you of Belichick out of Gerard Mayo. And that's what's kind of cool about the Patriots. It almost felt like Belichick passed the torch versus him getting fired and they just hired a new guy. This is someone that's been in the building for a long time, and it should make the transition, I don't want to say effortless, but a lot more smooth than you would expect when you lose a head coach that's been there for 20 years or however long Bill Belichick was there. And Bill said Giants Lions joint practices were basically UFC without the pay-per-view. I think everyone's fighting now. I'm seeing fights almost every single day, but I like that approach by Gerard Mayo. On Hard Knocks, Roma Dunze is channeling Kobe Bryant's advice, building chemistry with Caleb Williams. If you guys haven't got a chance to see Hard Knocks, I haven't myself, so I'm super excited to sit down. What I like to do is I like to wait for multiple episodes to play out, so that way I can binge watch it, because I know I'm going to like it so much, and just one episode isn't going to cut it. But in the second episode of Hard Knocks with wide receiver Roma Dunze, he conveyed his belief on just how invaluable preparation is to a pair of ninth grade students after practice. NBA legend Kobe Bryant said he never took a shot in a game that he didn't take 1,000 times in practice. Odunze relayed to the teens, it's the same way in football. You should never catch a ball in a game that you haven't caught 1,000 times in practice. It's just the preparation. You know what I mean? He continued, if you're going to do those things when you're doing that hard preparation, keep telling yourself like, hey man, I'm out here working. The guy across me, when it comes to game time, he didn't do the work that I was putting in. All those things build confidence. This is another really good sign out of Chicago right now. You draft a young rookie wide receiver, and we know that wide receivers can bring it's an ego position, right? You have to have, you don't have to, but it's very common to see Antonio Browns and Chase Claypools and Stephon Diggs and Terrell Owens and just like these personalities that they're just so talented that you deal with it. Odunze was super talented, and on top of that, it sounds like he is the type of player that you can only hope to draft. Somebody that is channeling that Kobe Bryant Mamba mentality. Somebody that's like, I'm going to put in so much work, because obviously the talent is there. He was drafted where he was drafted. So the fact that he is trying to make himself better and he's not viewing his draft pick as the finish line is really encouraging for Bears fans. So Eberflus said, yep, you got to know their skill set. That's all. I think it's just getting on the same page with the wide receivers, knowing your stuff and then knowing your guys. Williams said that too. Williams and the Bears head coach Matt Eberflus continued their dodged prep as well, which included building chemistry between the quarterback and Roma Dunze. So they're just trying to get those reps so that when week one kicks off, Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze have some sort of chemistry. Bill said, oh, I still have my Max subscription from the Giants when the Giants run. I didn't cancel it so I can make fun of the Bears for Rick. Odunze is a really nice guy. That's what the Giants, that's why the Giants passed on him. They wanted that dog in Neighbors. Personally, I really like Odunze. Yeah, and well, Malik Neighbors was viewed higher than Roma Dunze. They were all three almost equal, but I think the two that were in their own league was Malik Neighbors, and Marvin Harrison Jr. But I think Rome Odunze is going to be an amazing wide receiver in the league if if Caleb Williams pans out. Now, there was one last thing I wanted to look at, and it was the running back rankings. So this is the RB index. I do this every single year where we rank all 32 running back, only RB1s heading into 2024. So you're not going to even have guys like David Montgomery on this list because you're only ranking the RB1s, okay? Which I think is dumb because he's pretty much an RB1. It's like they're both RB1. Okay. I remember doing this last year and I was freaking out. I could not make sense of the list. They had dropped Dalvin Cook way to the bottom. And I was like, what happened to Dalvin Cook? Why is he not good anymore? Just because he's not with the Vikings? And they were right. So maybe there's something to it. But let's look at the index. This is kind of how they did it. If a team operates with a committee backfield, I simply chose the running back that I think will have the most production in 2024. And this is before I do that, the rankings from last year. Okay, where was Dalvin Cook? I just pulled it up. James Conner was 32. James Cook. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Let's just do this year's. Okay. Number 1 is the same last year as it was this year. And it's Christian McCaffrey, who's going into year 8. He earned Offensive Player of the Year last year. He earned himself a new contract, $38 million. He's the ultimate weapon for Kyle Shanahan. And the production that he puts up on a weekly basis is unmatched. I have no problem with CMC being number 1 on this list. This one is a little shocking to me, but Derrick Henry comes in at number 2. And what if I told you that Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry are only 1 year apart? Doesn't it almost feel like Christian McCaffrey is, 4 years younger than Derrick Henry for some reason? I mean, Christian McCaffrey's in year 8. Derrick Henry's in year 9. But Derrick Henry, I would have expected him to be like 5, I would think. But he comes in at number 2. In each of the last 5 seasons, the Ravens' leading rusher has been a quarterback. As good as Lamar Jackson is in the running game, it's no wonder Baltimore has fielded a top 3 ground attack every season since drafting Lamar Jackson. Henry adds a physical downhill element that will take the offense to the next level. The 6'2", 247-pounder is one of the best backs of his generation, and the Ravens know King Henry can practically hit 1,000 yards in his sleep. This is the perfect spot for the 30-year-old to add to his already amazing career. I mean, okay. So, if you're a Ravens fan, you love this, but I don't know if I would have Derrick Henry at 2. But, I'm not going to be like, what is that? It's just a little high. And number 3, Breece Hall comes in. And I could have seen Breece Hall where Derrick Henry was. But this list is really shocking me. Hall has the goods to be the best back in the league. We've seen glimpses of greatness in his first 2 seasons, including early in his rookie season. While it felt like he was shot out of a cannon every time he touched the ball, now nearly 2 years removed from the knee injury that ended his amazing debut season, Hall is set up for success with the Jets' offseason investments in the offensive line and Aaron Rodgers returning from injury. This will be a huge year for number 20. All right, so we got Derrick Henry at 2, Breece Hall at 3, Kyren Williams comes in at 4. I couldn't believe it. Number 4. Williams exceeded expectations in 2023. He racked up 100-plus scrimmage yards in 9 of 12 games that he played, finishing only behind Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry in total rushing yards. A perfect fit in Sean McVay's offense, Williams should build on his breakout season if he can just stay healthy. I didn't realize he was, I knew he was good, but 4. Wow. Saquon Barkley comes in at number 5. Bill, don't watch this part, Bill. Saquon Barkley comes in at number 5. It's going to take a game or two to get used to seeing Barkley in an Eagles uniform, but it should be exciting from the jump. The expectations are high for a rushing attack that features Barkley, who put up 1,200 plus scrimmage yards in 4 of 6 seasons with the Giants. A dual threat quarterback, Jalen Hurts, is going to help him. There's a lot of mouths to feed in the offense. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. But Barkley's a special player whom the Eagles know very well, and he'll get plenty of opportunities. He's in year 7. So you got Breece Hall Derrick Henry in year 9, Christian McCaffrey in year 8, and Saquon Barkley in year 7. Saquon Barkley is younger than Christian McCaffrey. I don't know. I guess I thought Saquon Barkley feels older to me, and Derrick Henry feels not just 1 year older than CMC, but he feels like 3 years older. So time is weird. Raheem Mostert at 6, I guess because he led the league in touchdowns last year. Jalen Wright looks really good in the postseason. I don't know if Raheem Mostert is going to have a 6 best. There's another running back I would put above him. But he comes in at number 6. Dolphins have a loaded backfield, but Mostert should again be the lead dog in the ground attack. The 32-year-old back has a lot of experience. He's in year 10. The veteran logged more than 1,000 rushing yards for the first time in his career and scored more total touchdowns, 21, than in his first 8 seasons combined. The Pro Bowler will have to share the load with Devon Achane and potentially 4th-round rookie Jalen Wright, who led FBS backs with 7.4 yards per carry last year, and somehow they were able to get him when they got him. This team has no shortage of home run hitters. Yeah, and that's why I wouldn't have him so high. Time is weird. It needs to be a shirt. Make sure that we order those. That's funny. At number 7, see, I would have Jahmyr Gibbs above Raheem Mostert. They got Jahmyr Gibbs here at number 7. The Lions had one of the best backfields last year. There should be no difference this fall with Gibbs and Montgomery. They should again share the load, but Gibbs gets the nod here because of what he did when the veteran was sidelined last year. As a rookie, Gibbs averaged 112 scrimmage yards per games in the 3 games Montgomery missed, while Montgomery averaged 81 yards per game in the 2 games that Gibbs missed. Gibbs, who also showed out in the postseason, is a special player with home run potential whenever he has the ball. Hopefully the hamstring injury suffered Monday isn't too serious. Jahmyr Gibbs coming in at number 7. And a little surprised that this guy fell all the way down to 8, but it's Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson coming in at number 8. The Falcons brought in a lot of new faces this offseason. Robinson is the clear front runner to get a majority of the touches this season and should build on a solid rookie campaign. I can't believe that Bijan Robinson would be below Raheem Mostert. I could kind of get with some of these other ones, but yeah, I would move Bijan Robinson above Jahmyr Gibbs and above Raheem Mostert. At number 9, Jonathan Taylor. Taylor is healthy entering 2024, leading me to believe he can indeed regain last year's form and return to the top of the RB ranks. I got to show you guys this. Hold on. Let me show you something. I think it's funny when a site... Look at this. Number 9. Here it is. Okay. Share screen. And here we go. All right. So look at this. Let me zoom in. Taylor is healthy entering 2024, leading me to believe that he can indeed regain yesteryears. Yesteryears. Fire the proofreader. Fire the editor for NFL.com. But I'm like, how does that even happen? I mean, on a company this big. But yeah, Taylor, I think he's going to be awesome. People have just kind of forgotten about Jonathan Taylor. They're like, yeah, he's not going to be great. He could lead the NFL in rushing this year. Like, he's that good. He's done it before. He can do it again. Jonathan Taylor needed another year. When you come back from an injury and there was the contract thing, I always tell you this story, but when they did the Veteran of the Day last year, I got to go to the Jaguars game and they honored me on the field. It was amazing. The Jags were playing the Colts, and they come up to your seat and they say, well, they tell you when you get to the stadium, you check in with them. They give you, all the stuff to give you your seats to the game. And then they say, okay, I think they said when there's 1 minute left in the second quarter, I want you to walk down to the bottom. Somebody's going to meet you there. Yeah, or they're just going to come to your seats. And I was like, oh, they can just come to the seat. That's fine. So a minute's left in the game, and they come and they're like, okay, it's time. So I'm starting to get butterflies because it's like, man, I'm sitting here. I see the stadium is packed, and I'm looking at the field from a viewer, and I'm like, I'm about to be on that field. I can't believe that. I've always wanted to be on an NFL field. So we go down there and we're going down the stairs, and now I'm on the field. I'm coming out of the tunnel and nobody notices, right? Because the game is being played. Well, they were going to have me do the, wave at the people, and the announcer was going to make his announcement. They were going to do that, but they were just waiting for a commercial. But the Colts went on what was like an 8-minute drive. I was so lucky because if it was a 3 and out, I would have done it and been back in my seat already. But because they went on an 8-minute drive, I got to stand down there and just like kind of soak it in for, honestly, it felt like 15 minutes. I don't know. But I don't know why it felt so long, but it was at least 15 minutes. I even streamed it on the Only Football podcast. But where was I going with this? Jonathan Taylor. So they are moving their way all the way down the field, and then they try to hit Jonathan Taylor on a wheel route, and it just gets overthrown. Gardner Minshew overthrows him just a little bit, and I'm telling you, he was chasing the ball down. It gets overthrown, and as he's trying to slow himself down, I had to go like this, and he just ran right past me, and I was like, I don't know why, but I did not realize how big Jonathan Taylor was. Like, you have a whole different appreciation when you're on, because when you watch it on TV, they all look like giants. You can't notice it, right? They're like, I guess some of them are big relative to the other players, but for the most part, when you see somebody that is like, oh my God, he's so short, it's like 5'10". Like, that's not that short, but it seems so short when you're watching it because these guys are giants. I'm telling you, when Jonathan Taylor was running full speed and he ran right past me, I thought to myself, I could not imagine having to hit this person. Like, how much of a beast do you have to be? How much of a physical specimen do you have to be to hit somebody that big and knock them out, knock them back and actually pop them? You just, the sport is so violent. I've always sat, I mean, I'm not complaining, but I mean, my tickets for Bronco games are always in the 500 sections. So from way up there, you don't really appreciate it. So Jonathan Taylor, he is the real deal. That was actually his first game back from his contract issue. I think that was maybe week 7, somewhere around then. Maybe no, I think it was week 4 or 5. But regardless, Jonathan Taylor is that dude. Like, he is so good. And I know that last year was a down year, but if he does bounce back this year, I mean, if you draft him in fantasy, when are you going to get him? Like, you could get him maybe even in the second round. Let's see what his predicted draft position is, because the upside is ridiculous. Jonathan Taylor draft projection. So, fantasy value, Taylor was 30th at his position. So he's 30th right now. Oh no, in 2023 he was 30th at his position. Yeah, we'll do a mock draft here pretty soon. I'll probably do it later this week. But Jonathan Taylor is keep that in your back pocket, because you might be able to get somebody like that. And rounding out the top 10, we have Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is now a Green Bay Packer. He is no longer with the Raiders, and there's a lot to be excited about when it comes to Green Bay's offense. The addition of Josh Jacobs is probably on the very top of the list. The former Raiders coming off of a down year, but the ceiling is sky high in Matt LaFleur's offense. He'll also help take some of the pressure off Jordan Love, who's under pressure to perform after signing a big extension. So Josh Jacobs, I mean, he could be in for a really big year too. We know Matt LaFleur is very committed to the run game. They've always stayed very balanced. They don't have that wide receiver that needs the ball like Stephon Diggs. So, I mean, Josh Jacobs is the biggest superstar, not named Jordan Love, on the offensive side of the ball. DeAndre Swift with the Chicago Bears, an excellent addition for the Bears, who are going to head in to this season with Caleb Williams and DeAndre Swift coming off a career year in Philly. Chicago is going to be able to have so many legitimate threats on the field that they're not going to be able to, double anybody. And I think DeAndre Swift is going to massively benefit from that. So, DeAndre Swift at 11. James Cook comes in at 12. Cook hit his stride in the second half of 2023 after Joe Brady took over as offensive play caller. With Brady back in 2024, I expect Cook to have similar performance in year 3. James Cook last year played in 17 games, had 1,122 rushing yards. He averaged 4.7 yards a carry. Only 2 rushing touchdowns, weirdly enough, but he did have 4 receiving touchdowns. And Nash, I didn't see these comments. Bill, I'm not sure if you know this, but the Giants are tied with the 14th youngest. Yeah, I thought it would be higher, to be honest. The Niners are the oldest. Yeah, I could see that. They do have a lot of veterans, especially CMC. He's a sneaky veteran, right? 8 years in the NFL. I mean, and he's still considered young to some extent. The way he plays, I mean, you're like, he's in his prime, and that much is for sure. Alvin Kamara is a weird one at 13 because he just hasn't been great for a while. For a long time. It's been 2 years now, and Alvin Kamara hasn't really done anything. He didn't even have 700 rushing yards last season. He only played in 13 games. He's vocalized that he's unhappy with his contract. He wants more money, and he doesn't appear to deserve it, coming off the worst statistical season of his career. They have a new coordinator in Clint Kubiak, and maybe his scheme will help Alvin Kamara bounce back, to where he was. But he's another guy that's in year 8. Him and CMC been in the league the same amount of time. Alvin Kamara is the oldest 8-year vet in the league. It seems like he's, I guess running backs, you just have a short life, when it comes to how long you can, be at the very top of your position. That's why I think Adrian Peterson's one of the best all time, is because how he was able to be on top for so many years. Travis Etienne comes in at number 14. 14. He had a league-leading 64 missed tackles on runs last season. So I think with what's his name, Tank Bigsby, if he can play a bigger role, because ETN was overutilized last season, and Doug Peterson, everyone admitted it, but every time they put Bigsby in, they weren't getting any production out of him, so they were kind of forced to put ETN back in the game. I don't know if he's going to have as productive of a season if Bigsby takes even a small step forward, but ETN, he's really good. He's a real deal. Going into year 4, he didn't play his rookie year, drafted out of Clemson, and he was, I think, dealing with an injury that whole rookie season. He didn't even play in the preseason. But since coming out of that injury, it always takes 2 years when you're coming off of a serious injury like that. So his first year back was all right. And then year 3 was really his breakout season. In the last 2 years, he's been pretty spectacular. Over 1,000 rushing yards, all 17 games. Durability's there. You love ETM. Aaron Jones is only in year 8 as well. Man, I'm just getting mind blown after mind blown. Aaron Jones is in year 8. The Vikings parted ways with Alexander Mattison because Minnesota ranked 29th in rushing yards per game last year and tied for the fewest rushing touchdowns. Jones is a welcome addition, as the 29-year-old racked up 6,612 scrimmage yards and 50 touchdowns over the last 5 seasons with the Packers. So he should be a big asset in the run game, which the Vikings may be relying on a little bit more than they were yesterday because of the injury. Number 16 is Rachaad White. Rachaad White. He played in 17 games last season, less than 1,000 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns, 64 receptions. I don't know if they have his average yard per carry, but it wasn't even 4 yards a carry. I think it was 3.8 or 3.6 maybe, because they asked him about it this offseason. And there's a reason that they drafted Bucky Irving in the 4th round, because they wanted to, say, hey, if you don't at least get a little bit better, like, we're moving off of you. He played in all 17 games, but didn't crack 1,000 yards rushing, and he had 272 attempts. He just wasn't that great. And the Bucs as a whole averaged just 88.8 rushing yards per game last season, which was dead last in the NFL. So Rachaad White being here is maybe even he should be a little bit lower. Najee Harris comes in at number 17. Not only is Najee working under a new coordinator in Arthur Smith, who worked with Derrick Henry in Tennessee, but he also joins in the backfield by a pair of mobile quarterbacks. Is this going to be the year Najee Harris, emerges? Because he's had a good season. I think his rookie season might have been his best. But now you got the Steelers declining his 5th-year option, so he's on a contract year. He's going to want to ball out. Can he do it? We'll see. I think Kenneth Walker is a little underrated on this list, coming in at 18. 2nd-round pick in 2022. He's had 1,100 scrimmage yards and 9 touchdowns in each of his first 2 seasons. Even with Zach Charbonnet sharing the backfield, Kenneth Walker has been consistent, and I think he has the upside to have a top 10 season. The explosiveness, the raw talent, it's all there. Kenneth Walker, he may have his breakout season this year. Gus Edwards is at 19. The Gus Bus is a downhill runner who should excel in the Chargers offense, earning a lot of work on first and second down as well as at the goal line. 20, Isaiah Pacheco. Andy Reid's offense will always go through Pat, or at least aim to do so. They're not going to ask him to do too much, but Pacheco has been a solid player in the Chiefs' offensive machine. The former 7th-round pick has established himself as the unquestioned RB1 and has shown steady improvement over the first 2 seasons. He sits at number 20 because he plays with the best quarterback on the planet in Mahomes. And the offense is always going through Mahomes. Joe Mixon. Ooh, this might be criminal. Joe Mixon at 21, who is now with the Houston Texans. Kind of like what he said about the offense going through Mahomes. Houston's goes through CJ Stroud. But Mixon could be an upgrade to a backfield that hasn't had a 1,000-yard rusher since Carlos Hyde in 2019. Mixon's registered more than 1,000 rushing yards 4 times in his 7 years and 1,250 plus scrimmage yards in 5 of his last 6 years. The veteran has also developed his skills in the passing attack in recent years, which will keep him on the field in third down. Joe Mixon's in year 8. There's a lot of year 8 players that still have a lot. I mean, year 8 is 29 years old. Like, there's a lot of them. Ramondre Stevenson's in year 4. He's one of my favorite pickups on fantasy this year. I think you can get him late. I think Ezekiel Elliott really messed with his workload last year. This is a 3-down back. There's a reason that the Patriots gave him the 4-year, $36 million contract. It's because they want him to be the guy, and I think he's going to. He's really good. So I think New England, with the quarterback situation and the lack of weapons, that they're going to lean on Ramondre in the running game to try to help out the rebuilding offense. But he's going to be the center point on this team. So 22, maybe he could go up a little bit. James Conner at 23, who is, you guessed it, in year 8. He played 13 games last season. He did go over 1,000 rushing yards, but this team is going to look a lot different. Kyler Murray's back fully healthy. They drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. Trey Benson is going to probably take some of the workload off James Conner. I said Trey Benson I thought was the best running back in this year's draft. So I don't know how long they're going to be able to keep him on the sideline. At 24, the Raiders running back Zamir White comes in. And with Josh Jacobs now in Green Bay, White takes over as RB1. He made 4 starts last year when Jacobs was out with an injury, averaging roughly 100 yards per game in those games. Whether either Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell was in at quarterback, he was able to do that. So Wright should get plenty of burn as the lead back. Zamir White, he's only in year 3. Ezekiel Elliott, number 25. This is crazy. You have Ezekiel Elliott over Javonte Williams. Dude, the Broncos are the most disrespected team all around in every way. Ezekiel Elliott hasn't done anything in so long. And, okay, he's back with Dallas now, reuniting with the Cowboys. It's a good idea, but I don't think this is an upgrade if you're the Cowboys. The Cowboys likely are just going to be 1 year and done, and maybe they'll draft one next year, but I don't know how Ezekiel Elliott's over Javonte Williams. That's crazy. And Bill says the same thing. He didn't do crap last season. At number 26, Javonte Williams comes in. Javonte Williams. And Javonte Williams is going to be having a very big season this year. A very big season. 1 second, guys. All right, I'm back. Yeah, Javonte Williams is going to have a big season in Denver this year. And I get it. He's got to go out there and prove it. But he had a season, well, not even a season-ending injury. He had a career-ending injury for a lot of people. He tore all 3 ligaments in his knee. Dude, that was rough. So we'll see. We'll see what he looks like. But I think he's going to look good. He looked good in the preseason. I mean, it's preseason. I get it. But he looked good. Oh, my gosh. Nick Chubb. What are you doing down here, buddy, at 27? You shouldn't be down here. There's no way. Well, at least someone on the Broncos is on the list. I don't think we'll even have that. I mean, you will. All 32 teams get their starting running back ranked. So Nick Chubb at 27, he's normally in the top 10. He ranks second in the NFL in rushing yards since entering the league. But how quickly can you return to elite form? Can Chubb help Cleveland's rushing attack get back to being one of the best in the league? Unfortunately, there's a lot of unknowns here, which is why the author has him ranked so low here. But Kevin Stefanski said last month that Chubb looks good running. So if Chubb can come back and be his normal self, I mean, even 70% of his normal self, then 27 is crazy, crazy low. Austin Eckler, another guy that could have a big season in a new place, joining Brian Robinson Jr. in the backfield. Jaden Daniels now the quarterback. Running back coach Anthony Lynn he has a relationship with. So this could be one of those just trades that really works for everybody. I think the system he's going into will create opportunities for Austin Eckler, and they're going to want him to play a big role to kind of take some of the pressure off of the rookie quarterback. I think Austin Eckler could have a big season, but he only had 628 rushing yards last year, so people are kind of down on him right now, and he's on a new team, and it's like, well, yeah, I guess that era is over. But Austin Eckler could still get back to where he was. He's in, you guessed it, year 8, 29 years old. There's plenty of 29-year-old running backs that have a lot of football left in them, and we've gone through a lot of them. So the guy's not even 30 yet, so let's just wait and see before we throw in the towel. Tony Pollard at number 29. I thought Tony Pollard disappointed last year once they gave him the reins and said, hey, you're going to be the guy. He didn't really capitalize on it. He's going to share snaps with Tyjae Spears, a third down option who averaged 5.5 yards per carry as a rookie. Derrick Henry is gone. Tony Pollard now with the Tennessee Titans. Titans could be a sneaky team. We'll see. At 30, Jonathan Brooks comes in, and they're going to also be relying on Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders early in the year. But he's projecting the second-round pick to ultimately emerge as the RB1 at some point this year. And he's still recovering from an ACL injury that he suffered in November. He could be ready to go by week 3 or 4, according to Dave Canals. He's an explosive dual-threat playmaker who is tough to tackle on the open field. Or in the open field. So Jonathan Brooks, the best running back on most draft boards out of Texas, comes in at 30. And then here we are, 31, Zach Moss, the Cincinnati Bengals running back Zach Moss, who was filling in while Jonathan Taylor was going through the contract negotiations. And he did an admirable job. He freaking crushed it. There's a reason that he was able to get on another team, and they actually believe that this guy, is their RB1. I don't know if this is even a scenario if Jonathan Taylor doesn't sit out those 4 games last year. So Moss went in, he made the most of his opportunity, and now he's got another opportunity with the Bengals. Their offense is going to run through Joe Burrow in the passing attack, but that could open up a lot of lanes for Zach Moss, and he's only going into year 5, so we'll see. I think Zach Moss could be a really good running back this year if what we saw from him last year is even going to semi-continue. We're in for a good year out of Zach Moss. And then at the very bottom of the list at number 32, we have Devin Singletary. The Giants were poised to take a step back in the run game the second that Saquon Barkley left for the rival Eagles. Singletary was fine in Houston last year, posting career highs in carries and yards, but he won't demand attention from opposing defenses. Plus, I question whether New York did enough to boost its offensive line. Big Blue's run game faces an uphill battle. Devin Singletary, who is in year 6, comes in as the 32nd and last ranked running back in the NFL. I'm so sorry, Bill. And Bill says, of course, we're dead last. Wouldn't have it any other way. You and me I'm 26, so we're both kind of down there. But thank you guys for tuning in today, the NFL news and covering J.J. McCarthy's injury, running backs, and other NFL news. We got some interviews coming up very shortly this week and next week, so definitely stay tuned for those. You guys can follow me at Kyle Kitzman on YouTube, and you can follow me at NFL with Kyle on Twitter. As always, I hope you guys have a great night. Thank you, everybody who is in here, Crafty, Nash, Bill, and then everyone else that didn't comment that is just watching online. Thank you guys for being here. And as always, I'll see you guys on the next stream. Go Broncos.